The bridge of the Vrelnathi flagship hummed with energy as Admiral Krev then stepped onto the command platform. His 6 eyes scanned the displays, showing the primitive star system ahead. Sol 3. A small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The intelligence reports said the inhabitants called themselves humans. Status report, Krev then commanded, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. His second officer, a younger Vrelnathi named Dexiel, brought up the data screens. The planet shows signs of technological development, Admiral. They have satellite networks, space stations, and basic defensive installations. Nothing that poses a threat to our forces. Krev then nodded slowly. This would be conquest number 74 for the Vrelnathi Empire. For 3,000 years, they had expanded across the galaxy, bringing order to chaotic systems and primitive worlds. The process was always the same. Send the declaration. Wait for surrender. Absorb the new territory. Simple, efficient, proper. Prepare the declaration protocol, Krev then ordered. The communications officer began entering the standard commands. The declaration of war was an ancient tradition, honored by all civilized species in the galaxy. It followed the Galactic Convention precisely. State your identity, list your grievances, demand surrender. Provide a timeline. The humans would receive 72 hours to comply. They always complied. Everyone did. 3,000 light-years away, Yuna sat at her monitoring station in the deep space listening post near Sol. The night shift was always quiet. Too quiet. She sipped her coffee and scrolled through the automated logs. Nothing unusual. Just the normal background radiation of space, the occasional meteor, the standard chatter from Earth's satellite network. She yawned and checked the time. 3 in the morning. 5 more hours until her shift ended. She reached for her coffee again, when every screen in the facility suddenly blazed white. What the hell? Yuna jumped up, nearly spilling her drink. Alarms didn't sound. The system wasn't registering this as an attack. The screens showed an incoming transmission, but unlike anything she had ever seen, the data was massive, organized, formal. It was coming through quantum channels that Earth barely knew how to use. Yuna's hands flew across her keyboard, trying to make sense of the information flooding in. Her colleague Minho rushed over from the other side of the room. "Are you seeing this?" he asked, eyes wide. "I don't know what I'm seeing," Yuna replied. "The system is translating it automatically. It looks like a message? A very official message." The translation software worked quickly. Earth's network had been designed to handle unknown languages and data formats. It was one of humanity's proudest achievements. A vast, interconnected system of artificial intelligence that had grown organically over 3 centuries. No single government controlled it. No one person understood all of it. It simply existed, learning and adapting constantly. The message materialized on the main screen in clear Korean, English, Mandarin, and 50 other languages simultaneously. Formal declaration of military intent. From the Vrelnathi Empire. Sovereign authority of 73 star systems. 2. The governing intelligence of Sol. 3. Earth. By the authority granted under the Galactic Convention, we hereby declare our intent to assume control of your star system. Your technological development has reached the threshold requiring integration into the galactic order. You have 72 standard hours to acknowledge this declaration and prepare for peaceful transition of governance. Failure to comply will result in military action. Minho read the message 3 times. Is this real? Are we being invaded by aliens? Yuna was already reaching for the emergency communications line to wake up her supervisor. But before she could dial, the screens changed again. Earth's network had processed the message. It had analyzed the content, checked it against every database and security protocol in its vast memory. It had searched for authorization credentials, verified sender identity, cross-referenced with known entities, and then it generated a response. The reply appeared on the Vrelnathi flagship's communication system exactly 3 seconds after they sent their declaration. Admiral Krev then watched the screen with satisfaction. The humans were responding quickly. Good. This would be over soon. But the message that appeared made no sense. Request denied. Reason: invalid permissions. Sender not recognized as authorized entity. Error code: auth. Fail. 7,734. Krev then's scales rippled with confusion. What does this mean? He demanded. Dex Eel checked the systems. Admiral, it appears their central intelligence has rejected our declaration. This is unprecedented. Rejected? Krev then's voice rose. On what grounds? We followed the proper protocol. The message says we lack authorization, Admiral. They don't recognize our authority to make such requests. Krev then slammed his appendage against the command console. We are the Vrelnathi Empire. We have conquered worlds for millennia. Send the declaration again. This must be a technical error. They sent it again, and again, and again. 20 times, the declaration went out through quantum channels. 20 times, Earth's network sent back the same response. Request denied. Invalid permissions. Back on Earth, Yuna finally got through to her supervisor, Director Donghyun. Within an hour, the deep space listening post was filled with officials, scientists, and military personnel. Everyone crowded around the screens, watching the alien empire continue to send the same message over and over. They're very persistent, Minho observed. Director Donghyun stood with his arms crossed, reading the declaration for the 10th time. He was a calm man, experienced in handling crises, but this was beyond anything in his training. And our network? Just keep saying, no? A young technician named Subin pulled up the deeper system logs. It's not exactly saying no, Director. The network doesn't recognize the Vrelnathi Empire as an entity with permission to make administrative requests to Earth systems. To put it simply, they're trying to execute commands on a computer that doesn't acknowledge their admin rights. So our entire planetary defense against an alien invasion is password protection? Donghyun asked slowly. More like authentication protocol, sir. The network evolved from the old internet security systems. It's very good at rejecting unauthorized access attempts. The aliens are basically sending an executable file, and our firewall is blocking it. Donghyun rubbed his face. Someone get me coffee. Strong coffee. And contact the Global Defense Council. Tell them we need an emergency session. What should I tell them it's about, sir? An aide asked. Tell them aliens are trying to invade us, but our spam filter won't let them. Across the galaxy, Admiral Krev then was facing a problem he had never encountered in 500 years of military service. The humans weren't fighting back. They weren't surrendering. They weren't even acknowledging the declaration properly. Their system simply kept rejecting it, like he was some kind of unauthorized user. Contact the Galactic Council, Krev then ordered finally. File a formal complaint. The humans are violating protocol. Dex Ill hesitated. Admiral, we've never had to file a complaint before. Usually, species just surrender. Do it anyway. This is unacceptable. As the Vrelnathi prepared their complaint, Earth's network continued monitoring the strange signals from space. It categorized the repeated messages as potential spam. It updated its filters. It logged the unauthorized access attempts. And in a subroutine that no human was currently monitoring, it began analyzing the technology behind the messages. Just in case. Just as it had been programmed to do. Always learning. Always preparing. Always protecting the chaotic, complicated, beautiful mess that was humanity. The network didn't understand concepts like war or empire or galactic authority. It only understood permissions and protocols and security. And these aliens, whoever they were, definitely didn't have permission to make requests of Earth systems. Request denied. Error code 7734. Have a nice day. The Galactic Council chambers floated in neutral space, a massive station where thousands of species gathered to settle disputes and maintain order. Mediator Thex-Ul drifted into the main hall, its translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated deep thought. The Vrilnathi complaint had reached its desk 3 hours ago, and frankly, Thex-Ul was baffled. In 12,000 years of galactic mediation, Thex-Ul had never seen anything like this. Species refused war declarations out of pride sometimes, or ignorance, or desperation, but never because their computer systems rejected the paperwork. The mediator accessed the communication logs. Sure enough, the Vrilnathi had followed every protocol correctly. The declaration was properly formatted, legally sound, and transmitted through approved channels. And the human response was equally clear. Request denied. Invalid permissions. Most unusual, Thex-Ul murmured, in its native language, which sounded like water flowing over crystals. I must investigate this personally. At Seoul Planetary Defense Headquarters, Director Donghyun sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by Earth's most important officials. Jiho represented the Pacific Alliance, a sharp-eyed man known for his quick thinking. Minji came from the European Federation, carrying centuries of diplomatic tradition. Taejun spoke for the African Union, his calm demeanor hiding a brilliant strategic mind. Representatives from every major nation and coalition filled the room. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Donghyun said slowly. An alien empire with 73 conquered star systems sent us a declaration of war. And our network treated it like a phishing email? Subin, the young technician who had been brought in to explain the technical details, nodded nervously. She was not used to briefing this many important people. Not exactly like phishing, Director. The network recognized it as a legitimate message. It just didn't recognize the sender's authority to make that kind of request of Earth's systems. Jiho leaned forward. Explain that in terms we can understand. Pretend we're 5 years old. Okay. Subin took a breath. Imagine someone walks up to your house and tells you that you have to move out. They're very official about it. They have forms and everything, but you've never seen this person before. You don't know them. They're not your landlord, not a government official, not anyone with actual authority over your house. So you just say no. You don't have permission to tell me what to do. Taejun smiled slightly. So, our entire planet just told an alien empire, you're not the boss of me? Essentially, yes. Minji raised her hand. But surely the network understands the concept of war? Of external threats? Oh, it absolutely does. Subin pulled up another screen. The network has thousands of threat response protocols. But those are triggered by actual attacks. Weapon signatures. Hostile actions. This was just a message. A request, basically. And the network processes requests based on authentication and authorization. These aliens aren't in our database of authorized entities. Donghyun rubbed his temples. So what happens now? Before anyone could answer, an aide rushed into the room. Director, we have incoming. Something just entered Earth's orbital space. Everyone stood at once. The main screen flickered to life, showing a small ship approaching Earth. It was unlike anything humans had built. Organic curves, shimmering hull, propulsion systems that bent physics in ways that made scientists cry. That's the Galactic Mediator, Subin said, checking the identification signals. They're here to investigate the dispute. They work fast, Jiho muttered. The Mediator's ship requested permission to land. This time, Earth's network recognized the request as standard diplomatic protocol and flagged it for human approval. Donghyun authorized the landing, and 30 minutes later, Mediator Thex-Ul floated into a hastily prepared conference room. Greetings. Thex-Ul's translation device made its voice sound like gentle chimes. I am here to resolve the dispute between the Vrelnathi Empire and Earth. I must speak with your governing intelligence. Donghyun stepped forward. I'm Director Donghyun, Head of Planetary Defense. Welcome to Earth. Yes, Thexul waved a tentacle politely. But I need to speak with your Central Artificial Intelligence. The entity that rejected the war declaration. That would be the network, Donghyun said carefully. But it's not exactly a single entity. It's more like millions of connected systems. Surely it has a central command node, a primary decision-making core. Everyone in the room exchanged glances. How do you explain to an alien that humanity's greatest achievement was also its most chaotic mess? Not really, Minji answered. The network evolved over 3 centuries from our old internet. It's decentralized, distributed. No single point of control. Thexul's body flickered with colors that the translation device interpreted as confusion. Then who authorized the rejection of the Vrelnathi Declaration? The automated security protocols, Subin offered. The network maintains its own authorization databases. The Vrelnathi weren't in it. So the request was denied automatically. Automatically, Thexul repeated slowly. You mean no intelligent being made this decision? Oh, the network is intelligent, Donghyun said. Very intelligent. But it operates on principles of distributed consensus and security protocols. It's not like a person who can just override everything. Thexul was silent for a long moment. Its species had been mediating galactic disputes for thousands of years. It had dealt with hive minds, group consciousnesses, and collective intelligences. But this was something new, an intelligence so distributed that it couldn't even recognize external authority because it barely recognized its own internal authority. I need to communicate with this network directly, Thexul said. Finally. Of course. Donghyun gestured to Subin. Set up a communication link. Donghyun. What followed was the most frustrating 3 hours of Thexul's long career. The network didn't have a communication interface designed for diplomatic contact. It had billions of interfaces for billions of different purposes. Subin tried directing the mediator to various access points, but each one treated Thexul as a different kind of user with different permissions. The defense systems wanted military credentials. The scientific databases wanted research authorization. The public information networks were happy to chat, but had no decision-making power. Finally, in desperation, Subin connected Thexul to the general customer service system. After waiting on hold for 45 minutes, listening to Earth's surprisingly catchy elevator music, Thexul finally reached a human operator. Hello. Thank you for contacting Earth Network Services. My name is Hana. How can I help you today? The young woman's cheerful voice came through the translator. Thexul tried to maintain its composure. I am Mediator Thexul of the Galactic Council. I need to discuss the war declaration sent by the Vrelnathi Empire. Oh. Hana's fingers flew across her keyboard. Let me pull up that case. Yes. I see it here. War declaration. Received 4 hours ago. Status. Denied. Reason. Sender not authorized. Is there something wrong with our response? The Vrelnathi Empire is a recognized galactic power, Thexul said carefully. They followed all proper protocols for a war declaration. I understand, sir. But they're not in our authorized entities database. To make requests of Earth systems, they need to be registered in our recognition framework. How do they become registered? Oh, that's easy. They just need to fill out Form 2847C, provide proof of identity, submit to a verification process, and wait for approval. Usually takes 4 to 6 weeks. Thexul's body flashed bright red, which its species used to indicate extreme stress. You're saying that before the Vrelnathi Empire can declare war on you, they need to apply for permission to declare war on you. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds silly. Hana laughed. But yes, basically. We can't just let anyone make administrative requests to our systems. Security protocols, you know? And there's no way to override this? Oh, sure. If they have a really urgent request, they can submit an emergency authorization application. That only takes 2 weeks. Back in the conference room, Donghyun watched Theksul return from the communication session. The mediator looked exhausted, if such a thing was possible, for a floating jellyfish. Your species, Theksul said slowly, is either brilliant or insane. I cannot determine which. Can't it be both? Jiho asked with a slight smile. The Vrel Nathi will not be pleased with this, Theksul warned. They are a proud species. Being told to fill out forms before they can conquer, you will be seen as a grave insult. Donghyun nodded seriously. We understand. But we can't override our own security systems just because someone wants to invade us. That would be terrible precedent. Theksul departed shortly after, its ship disappearing into the sky. In the conference room, Earth's leaders looked at each other. Did we just win a war by being too bureaucratic to invade? Taejun asked. I don't think the war has started yet, Minji replied. Subin checked her monitors. The Vrelnathi flagship was still in the outer system, waiting. The network continued to deny their requests, and somewhere in its vast processing power, automated systems were already analyzing the alien technology, cataloging their capabilities, preparing responses, just in case. Admiral Krev then stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 6 eyes burning with frustration. The mediator had returned with news that was somehow worse than rejection. The humans expected him to fill out forms. Forms. As if the Vrelnathi Empire was some minor trade delegation requesting docking privileges. This is intolerable, Krev then said, his voice low and dangerous. For 3,000 years, we have followed the proper protocols. We have honored the Galactic Convention, and these primitives dare to reject us because of their security systems? Dex-Il approached carefully. His commander had been in a foul mood since the mediator left. What are your orders, Admiral? Krev then turned to face the view screen showing Earth's moon, a gray, barren rock orbiting the blue planet. Perfect for a demonstration. We will show them the price of disrespect, Krev then decided. Prepare 3 warships. We will destroy their moon. When they see our power, they will understand that their computer systems cannot protect them. It was a standard intimidation tactic used by galactic empires for millennia. Destroy something big and visible, but ultimately useless. The primitives see the demonstration of power and surrender immediately. No real harm done, and the message is clear. Target the moon, Admiral? Dex-Il wanted to confirm the order. Yes, 3 ships, full plasma barrage, turn it to dust. On Earth's Lunar Station 7, Engineer Sungmin was performing routine maintenance on one of the deep space sensors. He enjoyed working on the moon. The quiet was peaceful compared to Earth's constant noise and activity. He hummed to himself as he replaced a faulty circuit board. His communicator beeped. Sungmin, this is station control. We're detecting 3 unknown ships approaching your position. Sungmin looked up at the sky. Against the black of space, 3 dots were growing larger. I see them. Are those the aliens everyone's been talking about? Affirmative. They're not responding to hails. Their weapons are charging. Get to shelter immediately. Sungmin ran. The nearest shelter was 200 meters away, across the gray lunar surface. His magnetic boots clanked against the metal walkways. Behind him, he could see the 3 Vrelnathi warships taking position around the moon. This is your final warning. A transmission came from Earth. You are approaching a protected celestial body. Any hostile action will be met with defensive measures. Krev then ignored the message. Fire. The 3 warships unleashed their plasma cannons simultaneously. Massive beams of superheated energy lanced toward the lunar surface, each one powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. They had destroyed moons before. This would take less than a minute. The beams struck the moon's surface, and something impossible happened. The moon rippled, not from the impact. The surface itself moved, like water disturbed by a stone. Thousands of hidden panels slid open across the lunar landscape. Defensive emplacements emerged from concealed bunkers. Weapons systems that had been dormant for decades powered up in microseconds. Earth's network had registered the attack not as an act of war, but as a natural disaster event. Incoming energy weapons detected. Civilian installation under threat. Emergency protocols activated. The response was automatic, immediate, overwhelming. Point defense lasers shot out from the moon's surface, intercepting the plasma beams and dissipating them into space. Kinetic interceptors launched from hidden silos, creating a wall of metal between the warships and the lunar surface. Energy shields flickered to life, domes of shimmering force protecting the human installations. But the network wasn't finished. It had categorized the 3 Vrelnathi ships as the source of the disaster. They needed to be neutralized. Thousands of defensive drones poured out of the moon like angry insects from a disturbed hive. Each one was small, fast, and equipped with exactly enough weaponry to disable, but not destroy. The network had decided this was an infrastructure protection scenario, not warfare. Non-lethal suppression protocols were in effect. Sungmin watched from the shelter's window, his mouth hanging open. What is happening? From Earth's orbital stations, similar responses cascaded into action. Weapons, platforms that had been quietly floating in space for decades, suddenly came alive. Gravity well generators activated, creating distortions in space that pulled the Vrelnathi ships off course. Electromagnetic pulse weapons fired carefully, calibrated bursts. On the Vrelnathi flagship, Admiral Krev then watched in horror as his 3 warships were swarmed by the defensive drones. Return fire! Destroy those machines! But the drones were too many, too fast, too coordinated. They attached themselves to the warship's hulls, disabling weapons systems, disrupting shields, cutting power to propulsion. Within 90 seconds, all 3 warships were dead in space, floating helplessly. Not destroyed. Disabled. Captured. A new message appeared on Krevthen's screen. Security violation detected. Unauthorized weapons. Discharge. Near protected celestial body. Offending vessels have been quarantined. Damage assessment in progress. Please submit Form 7734B. For appeal process. Estimated review time. 30–45 business days. Krev then stared at the message. His warships had just been impounded. Like illegal cargo. Like space debris violating traffic regulations. Admiral. Dex Eel's voice was shaking. What do we do? Fall back, Krev then ordered quietly. Fall back to minimum safe distance. And contact the Galactic Council again. On Earth, Director Dongyun was woken from a brief nap by his communicator screaming. He answered it to find his entire staff shouting over each other. Sir, the aliens attacked the moon. The defenses activated automatically. We captured 3 of their warships. The network is treating it as a security incident. Dongyun held up his hand for silence. Someone explain this slowly. Did we just go to war? Subin pulled up the logs. No, sir. The network registered the attack as a natural disaster, requiring emergency response. It activated the planetary defense grid, neutralized the threat, and impounded the offending vessels. Impounded, Dongyun repeated flatly. Yes, sir. They're classified as hazardous objects in restricted space. The network has already generated incident reports and filed them with 17 different administrative departments. Jiho arrived at the command center, still putting on his jacket. Did we win? I don't think it was a fight, Minji said, reviewing the data. The network responded to an environmental hazard. Like, if someone dumped toxic waste in protected waters. Automatic cleanup and containment. Taejun was reading through the automated responses the network had sent to the Vrelnathi. This is amazing, We just arrested their military fleet for illegal weapons discharge. Can we do that? Someone asked. Apparently we just did, Donghyun said. The question is what happens next. On the moon, Sungmin cautiously emerged from the shelter. The lunar surface was returning to normal. The defensive systems were folding back into their hidden positions. The drones were forming neat formations around the captured Vrelnathi ships, keeping them immobilized. Station 7 to Earth Control, Sungmin reported. The attack has stopped. No damage to the station. Repeat. No damage. Acknowledged, Station 7. Good work staying safe. I didn't do anything, Sungmin said honestly. The base just defended itself. And that was the truth. The humans hadn't fought off the attack. They hadn't made a strategic decision to disable the Vrelnathi ships. Their automated systems had simply responded to a threat the way they were designed to, with overwhelming efficiency and complete disregard for the political implications. Back on the Vrelnathi flagship, Admiral Krev then received a new transmission from Earth. He almost didn't want to open it. Incident report, 77,734 Alpha. 3 vessels violated protected space and discharged weapons in restricted zone. Vessels have been impounded pending investigation. To recover vessels, please. 1. Submit proof of ownership, Form 9982C. 2. Provide insurance documentation. 3. Pay applicable fines, amount to be determined. 4. Complete safety compliance review. 5. Attend mandatory security briefing. Failure to comply within 90 days will result in vessels being declared abandoned property. Below the formal notice was a single line that made Krevthan's scales turn pale. Thank you for your cooperation. Have a nice day. They impounded our warships, Krevthan said numbly. What do we do, Admiral? Krevthan looked at his second officer, then at the disabled ships floating near Earth's moon, then at the blue planet that had just demonstrated defensive capabilities that shouldn't exist for such a primitive species. We contact the Galactic Council, he said finally, and we tell them that Earth is not what it appears to be. Dexel hesitated. Should we mention the parking ticket, sir? Ride. Absolutely not. We'll never hear the end of it. But both of them knew the truth. The Vrelnathi Empire had just lost an engagement without the humans even realizing they were in a fight. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any military defeat. Earth's network continued monitoring the situation, cataloging the Vrelnathi technology from the captured ships, updating its threat assessments, and generating more forms for the aliens to fill out if they wanted their vessels back. Standard procedure. Nothing personal. Just security protocols doing exactly what they were designed to do. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. News of the incident had spread across 1,000 worlds, and representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to witness what everyone was calling the human situation. Mediator Thexul floated at the center of the Great Hall, its body pulsing with stress patterns. Order, Thexul called out, its translation device amplifying the sound. We will have order. The assembled aliens quieted down, though excited chatter still rippled through the crowd. Admiral Krev then stood at one podium, looking diminished and exhausted. At the opposite podium stood Earth's newly appointed galactic ambassador, a woman named Unji. Unji had been selected for this role precisely because she was one of the few humans who actually understood how Earth's network functioned. She had spent 20 years as a systems architect, designing interfaces between the old human internet and the new distributed intelligence. She knew every quirk, every protocol, every strange design decision that had led to this moment. The Council will hear the Vrelnathi complaint, Thexul announced. Krev then stepped forward, trying to maintain his dignity despite the humiliation of the past days. Honored Council members, the Vrelnathi Empire has followed every law, every tradition, every protocol of civilized galactic society. We submitted a proper war declaration. We waited for acknowledgement. When we were insulted with demands for paperwork, we attempted a demonstration of power to encourage compliance. You attacked their moon, a council member pointed out. A standard intimidation tactic, Krev then defended. We have used it on 20 worlds. It causes no real harm and demonstrates capability. Always, the primitive species surrenders immediately. But Earth did not surrender, Thexul said. Earth did not fight, Krev then corrected bitterly. Earth's automated systems impounded our warships like we were parking illegally. They sent us forms to fill out to get them back. This is not warfare. This is not diplomacy. This is bureaucratic insanity. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several species who had faced the Vrelnathi before seemed pleased to see the Empire humbled. But even they were confused by Earth's response. Ambassador Unji. Thexul turned to the human. The council would hear Earth's explanation. Unji took a breath. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but standing before thousands of alien species was still intimidating. Honorable council members, I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding. The Vrelnathi Empire assumed that Earth would respond to their declaration the way other species do. But Earth is not like other species. Obviously, someone muttered from the crowd. Let me explain. Unji activated a holographic display. Most civilizations develop artificial intelligence as a tool, a servant, a controlled system, with clear hierarchies and command structures. Earth did not do this. The hologram showed the evolution of Earth's internet, from simple connected computers to the vast network that now existed. 300 years ago, humans created a global information network. It grew organically, without central planning. Millions of different systems, billions of users, countless security protocols, all layered on top of each other. No single government controlled it. No one person designed it. It simply evolved. Chaos. A council member observed. Yes, Unji agreed. Beautiful, functional chaos. Not because we programmed an AI to rule it, but because intelligence emerged from the connections themselves. The network learned to protect itself, to organize information, to respond to threats. She changed the hologram to show the network's structure. It looked like a living organism, all interconnected nodes and flowing data. When the Vrelnathi sent their war declaration, they sent it to what they assumed was Earth's central government or ruling AI. But the network doesn't work that way. It received the declaration as an external request to modify Earth systems. And like any good security system, it checked for authorization. We are the Vrelnathi Empire. Krev then protested. We have authority. Not in Earth's databases, you don't, Unji said simply. The network doesn't recognize concepts like empire or galactic authority because humans barely recognize those concepts ourselves. We have 247 different nations, 12,000 semi-autonomous city-states, and roughly 800 million different administrative systems. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. You're saying, Thexul spoke slowly, that your artificial intelligence rejected our war declaration because it doesn't understand hierarchy? No, it understands hierarchy, Unji corrected. It just doesn't agree on which hierarchies are valid. Different parts of the network answer to different authorities. The defense systems answer to military protocols. The civilian systems answer to local governments. The scientific databases answer to research institutions. There is no single authority that can speak for all of Earth. A council member who resembled a floating crystal cluster spoke up. But surely in times of crisis, you have emergency powers? Central command? We do, Unji admitted. Sort of. We have emergency coordination systems, but those still operate within the framework of distributed authority. When the Vrelnathi attacked our moon, the network responded with defense protocols, not because someone ordered it to, but because that's what those systems are designed to do automatically. Krevthan's scales darkened with anger. This is absurd. How can you function as a civilization? Carefully, Unji said with a slight smile. And with a lot of arguments. But it works for us. Back on Earth, Technician Hyunwoo was doing routine maintenance on one of the network's monitoring stations when he noticed something unusual in the deep logs. He called over his supervisor. Minho, look at this. Hyunwoo pointed to streams of data. The network has been analyzing the Vrel-Nathi technology since the first contact. That's standard threat assessment. Minho said. Yes, but look at what it's generated. Hyunwoo pulled up a series of files. 17 different strategic scenarios for dismantling the Vrel-Nathi Empire. Complete breakdowns of their technology, their supply chains, their communication networks. It even has plans for governing their conquered territories if we somehow ended up in control of them. Minho stared at the data. When did it generate all this? Starting about 6 hours after the first war declaration was received. It's been running continuous analysis as background processing. Why? Because that's what it does, Hyunwoo said quietly. The network categorized the Vrel-Nathi as a potential systemic threat. It generates contingency plans for everything from earthquakes to asteroid impacts. This is just another scenario. Minho read through one of the strategic scenarios. It was terrifyingly comprehensive. According to this, we could cripple their entire empire in less than 3 years, mostly through economic disruption and information warfare. The network doesn't recommend it, though. Hyunwoo pointed to the conclusion. It says, the administrative burden of governing conquered territories exceeds current bureaucratic capacity. So we could win, Minho said slowly. But the paperwork would be too annoying. Basically, at the Galactic Council, Eunji continued her explanation. The point I'm trying to make is that Earth didn't refuse your war declaration out of defiance or superiority. We simply don't have the governmental structure to process it in the way you expected. Our systems operate on different logical frameworks. But you captured our warships, Krevden said. That was deliberate. No, that was automatic. Eunji corrected. You discharged weapons in a protected zone. The defense grid responded according to its programming. It used non-lethal suppression because the threat level didn't warrant destruction. And then, it filed incident reports because that's what it's supposed to do when there's a security violation. You're telling me, a council member who looked like an upright insect said slowly, that Earth's defense was just following automatic protocols? There was no strategic decision? Not in the way you mean, no. The strategic decisions were made decades ago when we programmed the defense systems. When the actual incident occurred, the response was automatic. But someone could override these systems, Krev then insisted. You have the ability to manually control them. We could try, Eunji admitted. But the network operates at speeds and complexities beyond human oversight. By the time a human could decide what to do, the automated systems have already responded. We designed it that way, deliberately. Threats move too fast for committee decisions. Thexul's body flickered with patterns that indicated deep contemplation. So Earth is defended by an artificial intelligence that doesn't recognize external authority, operates on principles of distributed consensus, and responds to threats automatically without waiting for permission. When you put it that way, it sounds dangerous, Eunji said. It is dangerous, Thexul replied, but perhaps not in the way the Vrel-Nathi assumed. The mediator turned to address the full council. It appears we are facing an unprecedented situation. Earth's governmental structure is so fundamentally different from galactic norms that standard diplomatic protocols simply do not apply. They cannot accept a war declaration because they have no central authority to accept it. They cannot negotiate surrender because they have no single entity with the power to surrender. Then how do we deal with them? Someone asked. Very carefully, Eunji suggested, and with a lot of patience. And forms. Lots and lots of forms. Despite the tension, several council members made sounds that the translator interpreted as laughter. Even Thexul's body pulsed with amusement patterns. Only Admiral Krev then remained serious, staring at the human ambassador with new understanding. Earth wasn't a primitive world waiting to be conquered. It was something far stranger and potentially more dangerous. A civilization that had accidentally built defenses so bureaucratically complex that even invasion required filling out the proper paperwork first, and somehow, that was more effective than any weapon. The Galactic Council reconvened after a 2-day recess. Those 2 days had been filled with intense debates, private meetings, and countless consultations with legal experts from across the galaxy. The question facing everyone was simple but unprecedented. How do you conduct diplomacy with a species that accidentally made itself immune to standard diplomatic protocols? Mediator Thexul floated in the center of the chamber, looking somehow tired despite being a species that didn't technically sleep. The Council has reviewed all evidence and testimony regarding the Earth situation. We must now determine a path forward. Admiral Krev then stood at his podium, his pride requiring one final attempt. The Vrelnathi Empire demands acknowledgement of our war declaration. Our honor requires it. And Earth's systems continue to classify your messages as unauthorized, Thexul replied. We appear to be at an impasse. Back on Earth, Director Donghyun sat in an emergency meeting with the planet's key representatives. Jiho paced near the window. Minji reviewed documents on her tablet. Taejun sat quietly, thinking. Around the table were ministers, generals, scientists, and technicians, all trying to solve an impossible problem. The Vrelnathi won't back down, Jiho said. Their pride is wounded. They need some kind of acknowledgement, or they'll keep escalating. But we can't override our own security systems just to make them feel better, Minji countered. That sets a terrible precedent. Every hostile entity would just demand we turn off our defenses. What if, Donghyun said slowly, we don't override the system? What if we work within it? Donghyun. Everyone turned to look at him. Explain, Taejun said. The network rejected their war declaration because they lack authorization, correct? Donghyun looked at Subin, who nodded. So what if we give them authorization? Manually. We create an override that says, yes, this specific alien empire has permission to declare war on us. Silence filled the room as everyone processed this idea. That's insane, Hyunwoo said. Is it? Donghyun asked. Think about it. The network operates on permissions and protocols. We can't force it to ignore security, but we can add authorized entities. We add the Vrelnathi Empire to the database as a recognized entity with permission to submit formal declarations. And then what? Jiho asked. They declare war, and we fight them? Then we formally respond to their declaration, Donghyun said, through proper channels, following our own protocols. Minji caught on first. Oh, that's clever. We're not accepting their authority. We're processing their request through our bureaucratic systems. Exactly. It acknowledges their declaration while maintaining our sovereignty. Subin pulled up the network's administrative interfaces. I can create a new category. 1. Something like extraterrestrial diplomatic military relations. Add the Vrelnathi Empire as an authorized entity within that category. The network will accept their declarations, but still process them according to Earth protocols. How long will that take? Taejun asked. With emergency authorization? 6 hours. Do it, Donghyun ordered. 6 hours later, the systems were in place. The network had been updated with a new authorization framework specifically for handling alien empires who wanted to declare war. The Vrelnathi were added as the first authorized entity. When Admiral Krev then resent his war declaration for the 83rd time, something different happened. Request accepted. Processing. Analyzing threat level. Classification. Minimal threat. Recommended response. Diplomatic resolution, with economic sanctions as deterrent. Military action authorized only if negotiation fails. Probability of successful diplomatic resolution, 99.97%. Additional notice. Autoshenta Quarantaset. Forms require completion before military engagement can proceed. Estimated processing time, 6 to 8 months. Would you like to begin the application process? Krev then stared at the message. They had accepted his war declaration and immediately buried it under so much paperwork that actually fighting would take months. What are these forms? He demanded. Dexiel pulled up the list. Environmental impact assessments for space battles. Civilian evacuation protocols. Economic impact statements. Damage liability insurance requirements. Historical preservation guidelines for cultural sites. Biological contamination prevention measures. The list goes on, Admiral. They need permits to have a war? Krevthen's voice was hollow. It appears so, sir. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Unji presented Earth's response to the Assembly. My government has formally acknowledged the Vrel-Nathi War Declaration. We have processed it through our standard threat assessment protocols. And your assessment? Thexul asked. The network has determined that military conflict is unnecessary and recommends diplomatic resolution. However, should the Vrel-Nathi Empire insist on proceeding with military action, we are prepared to process the required documentation. Quote, Unji pulled up the list of forms on the chamber's main display. 847 different requirements scrolled across the screen. The assembled aliens stared in disbelief. You require environmental impact reports before engaging in space combat? One council member asked. Of course, Unji said. Space battles generate significant debris fields. We need to assess the long-term effects on local orbits, potential collision cascades, and cleanup costs. It's basic environmental responsibility. This is ridiculous. Krev then exploded. War is not a bureaucratic process. On Earth, everything is a bureaucratic process. Unji replied calmly. We have environmental regulations, safety protocols, economic oversight, and legal frameworks that apply to all activities, including military conflict. We can't just suspend our laws because someone wants to invade us. Thexul's body pulsed with what might have been amusement. Ambassador Unji, are you saying that Earth has made warfare so bureaucratically complicated that it becomes functionally impossible? Not impossible, Unji corrected. Just properly regulated. If Admiral Krev then completes all the required forms, submits the necessary documentation, passes the environmental reviews, and obtains all relevant permits, then we can proceed with formal military conflict. How long would that take? Krev then asked bitterly. With expedited processing? 6 to 8 months. Standard processing could take up to 2 years. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in noise. Some species were laughing. Others were horrified. A few were taking notes, wondering if they could implement similar systems. Mediator Thexul called for order. I believe I see a solution here. Admiral Krevthen, your empire demanded acknowledgement of your war declaration. Earth has provided that acknowledgement. Your honor is satisfied. Our Earth. Calm. Right. But they've made it impossible to actually fight, Krevthen protested. No, they've made it inconvenient, Thexul corrected. You could still pursue military action if you chose. You simply have to follow their administrative procedures. That is their right as a sovereign world. The mediator turned to Unji. However, Ambassador, Earth must also recognize that such bureaucratic obstacles, while legal, do create barriers to normal diplomatic relations. We understand. Unji nodded. Which is why we're proposing an alternative. Instead of warfare, we offer trade agreements, technological exchange, and formal diplomatic recognition. We'll add the Vrel-Nathi Empire to our authorized entities database for peaceful relations, much less paperwork involved. It was a clever solution. Krevthen could save face by claiming Earth had acknowledged his empire's power. Earth could maintain its systems while opening peaceful channels, and the Galactic Council could avoid the headache of dealing with this bizarre situation any further. The Council supports this resolution, Thexul announced. Unless there are objections, Krevthen was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. The Vrel-Nathi Empire accepts. We will pursue diplomatic relations with Earth. Excellent, Unji smiled. I'll send you the forms. 3 weeks later, at Seoul Planetary Defense Headquarters, Director Dong-hyun met with his core team one final time to review the situation. So we survived first contact with hostile aliens, Jiho said, sipping coffee. Not through superior weapons or brilliant strategy, but through paperwork. Don't forget the automated defense systems, Taejun added. Those helped. True, Minji agreed. But the bureaucracy was what really won the day. We made war so annoying that peace became the easier option. Subin pulled up a final report. Director, there's something you should see. It's from the network's deep analysis files. Dong-hyun looked at the document she displayed. What am I looking at? A strategic assessment that the network generated during the crisis, Hyunwoo explained. He had helped Subin compile the report. It calculated what would have happened if we had actually gone to war with the Vrel Nathi. And, according to the network's projections, we would have won. Not easily, but definitively. Our distributed systems, automated defenses, and cyber warfare capabilities would have overwhelmed their centralized command structure within 3 years. We would have accidentally conquered 17 of their star systems, primarily through economic disruption and information warfare. Dong-hyun blinked. Accidentally conquered? The network's word, not mine, Hyunwoo said. It classified it as an undesirable outcome and specifically recommended we avoid military conflicts because, and I quote, administrative burden of governing conquered territories exceeds current bureaucratic capacity. Everyone in the room was quiet for a moment. So we didn't fight them, Jiho said slowly. Because winning would create too much paperwork? Essentially, yes. Taejun started laughing. Then, Minji joined in. Soon the entire room was filled with laughter, the kind that comes from releasing tension after a crisis. We are the strangest species in the galaxy, Dong-hyun said, wiping his eyes. Probably, Minji agreed. And it did work. Over the following months, Earth established formal diplomatic relations with the Vrel Nathi Empire, and through them, with dozens of other galactic civilizations. Trade began. Technology was exchanged. Cultural programs started. The galaxy learned to work with humanity's chaotic, bureaucratic, distributed systems. They learned to fill out the forms, follow the protocols, and respect the security measures. It was annoying, certainly. But it was also fair. The network didn't care if you were a mighty empire or a single-ship trader. Everyone got the same treatment. Everyone followed the same rules. Admiral Krev then, to his credit, adapted. He even developed a grudging respect for Earth's systems after watching them reject an attempted cyber attack from a rival empire with the same efficiency they had rejected his war declaration. The network didn't play favorites, it just enforced its protocols. Yuna, who had been the first human to detect the alien war declaration, was promoted to Director of First Contact Protocols. Her job was to help alien civilizations understand Earth's systems and navigate the bureaucracy. It's actually kind of fun, she told Minho over coffee one day. Watching them realize that request denied isn't personal. It's just the system working as designed. Do you think we'll always be this complicated? Minho asked. Probably, Yuna said. But that's what makes us human. We take simple things and make them beautifully, frustratingly, effectively complicated. On the moon, engineer Sungmin returned to his maintenance work, occasionally glancing at the sky where alien ships now passed peacefully. The hidden defensive systems remained in place, ready to activate if needed. But for now, they slept quietly beneath the lunar surface. Earth's network continued its eternal vigil, processing billions of requests every second, granting permissions, denying unauthorized access, generating forms, and protecting humanity in the only way it knew how. By being exactly what humans had created, a chaotic, distributed, bureaucratic masterpiece that had accidentally made Earth one of the most secure planets in the galaxy. And somewhere in its vast digital consciousness, the network maintained its threat assessments and contingency plans. Just in case. Just as it was designed to do. Because that was the human way. Hope for peace. Prepare for everything. And always, always, keep proper documentation. Request approved, with appropriate authorization. After completing the required forms, have a nice day.